excited today to have a special guest on our podcast, Adam Ellis, who is joining us. He's the founder and CEO of Harmoni Solutions, Inc. Um, Adam, thanks for joining us this morning. If you could you tell us a little bit about your company, Harmoni Solutions, Inc.?
Yeah. So Harmoni Solutions Inc. is a startup in the space of improving the way humans interact with machines, in short. Our focus today is on CNC machines and how you can kind of improve how operators interact with them and just, really change the way that shops improve their efficiency.
Now, for those of our listeners or viewers who may not be familiar with CNC machines,
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what CNC machines are for those people who may not be as familiar with the manufacturing processes?
Yeah, of course. So, a lot of people tend to be familiar with 3D printers. And I always describe it kind of like, if you take a 3D printer, it's like laying down material. And a CNC machine is kind of the opposite of that. You put a piece of metal or something in there, and it kind of cuts away the material, and you end up with a product. You would use them. They've been around for much longer than 3D printers, and used for a lot of the products that you take for granted all day long.
Well, and and it's interesting that you talk about just that that they've been around for a long time. This is the CNC machine. I mean, I know we're going to talk about Harmoni Solutions
Right.
in your product, but the actual CNC machines have been around. CNC machines have been around for decades.
Right. Exactly. Lots of different brands, lots of different, technologies have evolved over the years. But the reality is the basic premise of how they operate actually hasn't changed that much in the end. It's just been a few adaptations of some of the accessories that kind of go with them.
So tell us, how did you come up with the idea for Harmoni Solutions?
Yeah, so I've been in the consulting space for the past 25 years, working with a lot of these kinds of CNC machine shops largely. My consulting practices were around ERP systems and how these shops use ERP to, get product out the door basically. And it just became apparent to me in working with them that an awful lot of focus had been put onto the front side of the office of improving operations there. And maybe not as much when it comes to touching the machine. It was a little bit more of a gray area there. And there's an awful lot of meat on the bone to improve how things work.
You already talked about your background a little bit in the consulting space, but you've been working kind of in this manufacturing space for more than just a couple of years. I mean, this has been a bigger chunk of your career.
Right. Yeah. I've been, what you, I guess, consider a serial entrepreneur. I've really kind of always been interested in having my own business, actually going all the way back to being a kid. Me and my brother used to sell produce door to door. Then we started a lawn mowing business. Then
I had one of those as well.
You had one of those too? Yeah. It's a great way to make some money when you want to save up for a stereo or something as a kid.
Mine was actually a guitar, but yes.
A guitar, yeah, even cooler. Yeah. And then, that really progressed me as I came out of college. I did briefly take a job at a manufacturing shop, which was great for me to get that experience of the terminology and just the way business operates. Then kind of went back to starting my own thing, though. I went to a consulting practice after that where we focused initially on generic IT consulting, setting up servers and throwing network cable and all that stuff. And then quickly realizing that ERP was, this much better way to make money. And we, doubled down on that and built a practice that at our high watermark, we had 24 folks working for us doing ERP customization work all across the world, really. And that's what really, got me going in this direction.
Now, one thing that I want to mention or at least talk about is Harmoni Solutions Inc. is actually part of the Youngstown business incubator process. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We've set up with them last year. And they've been super helpful. It's kind of a great resource in the region for having something that's focused on this kind of technology. There's lots of folks that might be interested in a pure SaaS kind of solution or something like that. But, we represent something that's a little bit more difficult. It's a hardware component. It's talking about, production machinery, things like that. A lot of folks don't want to have that expertise around that. But YBI doubles down on that, and we really appreciate working with them.
Well, I mean, and I think it's interesting too, right? At least I find it interesting because I'm originally from northeastern Ohio,
Yep.
and I still have family up there. But northeastern Ohio has long had a large manufacturing presence.
Right.
I mean, for decades and decades and decades. And I know that economic cycles have dipped and raised over the years, but I think it's interesting to see that a company who was kind of helping to revolutionize what was the backbone of that economy.
Right.
I at least find it interesting, and I'm always excited to talk to another Ohio business entrepreneur. So
Yeah. Thanks.
again, we're happy to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks.
Um, if you could tell me, when we talk about Harmony Solutions, what was kind of some of the problems you were identifying in the manufacturing process that you saw that you thought, hey, this is something we as a company can really improve on?
Right. Well, there's been several things, and a lot of it kind of is anchored around that ERP consulting background that I had. If you think about ERP for a lot of mid-sized companies, it is the system of record for them. It is where they define what was sold to a specific customer, down to the revision of the part, basically, how that should be manufactured, and then how you understand the costing of that as it kind of is analyzed after the fact, and then how you bid that the next time, the similar part. And one of the challenges that I saw time and time again was that they only had half the story to work with. That a lot of times in the current world, they are relying on operators to either use paper timesheets or shared time clocks out on the shop floor to record their time on specific jobs. And then that's what's kind of rolling up into their ERP software, and that's how they're informing their decisions in the future. The reality is that data is only as good as the person inputting it. And when it's really tedious to go back and forth from your machine to a shared time clock machine or a piece of paper, for tracking it, you tend to not be super accurate in what you're doing. So really, it's garbage in, garbage out. If we can improve the way that information is tracked by making it more convenient to enter that time, and also to boil together with the actual data coming off the machine itself to validate the accuracy of the data, that would be a big thing. So that was one of the first, ideas that kind of came with it. Second was like, how do you, if the ERP system of record and it knows part and revision, which again is the key thing of what you're selling, how can you use that key information to help prevent things going awry from the beginning? Making sure that the operator has the right instructions, they got the right drawing, they got the right program loader on the machine, all the settings are pre-configured right on the machine. If we could somehow tie that back to ERP, then we would save a lot of scrap costs, but also wasted human effort and all that other sort of stuff. And then lastly, there's a lot of players out there that are involved in the world of monitoring machines to improve efficiency purely by the virtue of taking all this data and analyzing it. If we can blend that together with ERP, we can improve efficiency with that real-time data. And we can do it in a better way than other folks are because of our tie-ins to ERP. So that was really the nexus of the problems we wanted to solve kind of going into it, and kind of how we arrived at wanting to make Harmony in the first place.
So we've kind of talked about the problems you identified. So
Yeah.
tell us, how does Harmony work to fix those problems?
Yep. So first, we know that a lot of, especially manufacturing, you got to be pragmatic first. You have to start with something that is going to give immediate ROI. So our first thing is, how do you save time? How do you basically take that time walking back to the ERP terminal and leverage that in something that pays for the solution right out of the box? So we save time through several techniques. One is leaning heavy into the use of RFID technology. And I'm talking long range RFID stuff. I'm not talking you got to go up and tap some sort of reader like you might use to get into a door or something like that. Yeah. I'm talking you walk up to a terminal, and by the time you're there, it knows who you are, what you're working on, what parts you have, what tools you have. Just gather all that based off of these inexpensive stickers that you put on the back of anything that you might want to identify. these stickers cost pennies each nowadays. If we would have built this, a decade or two ago, they wouldn't have either existed, or they would have been so expensive it would have been, just not reasonable. Nowadays, you can buy these for pennies each. So we leverage that to automate input of data and guarantee the accuracy of that data that's being input. We then take the next level to that to pair that with the time tracking. So that stuff they're walking back and forth to the ERP terminal or the timesheet, we're saying, okay, I'm going to take this sticker and I'm going to basically flip the script here and basically say, hey, Adam, I see you're holding this part. Is that right? Yes. Now I'm tracking your time. I've saved you a few minutes there per job change, basically, which can really, really add up when you're talking, the cost of the operators, the cost of the machine not running, all that other sort of stuff.
So when you're talking in that scenario, you're actually talking about using it to track the operator.
Track the operator, and then that the terminal is at a machine, so it kind of has a feed of data come off the machine, so we're kind of able to pair machine and operator, right?
Okay.
Yep, that's right. And then the last bit is using that same sticker to help look up all the stuff that the operator may have needed to do their job. So instructions, drawings, all that sort of stuff. The sticker just pulls it up. You're not flipping through a binder. You're not like shuffling through paperwork. We just got it right there. So saving time is kind of the first, tier of what we get into.
Yeah.
But then, and this kind of just ties into that last bit, is reducing scrap and adding safeguards and setting up machines faster, because we've pulled up the right instructions and the right programs. We've inherently reduced a point of scrap occurring. You don't have a chance of loading the wrong program file from a network drive because you missed that the rev change. You have to look for a different file name, or you don't accidentally pull up the left-hand side part drawing instead of the right-hand side part drawing because you missed an L versus an R or something like that. We, cut that off at the beginning, and there's no choice. It's just presented immediately for you on there. And when we take not only loading the program, but also on the machine, applying all the settings to it automatically via our interface, you're keeping that machine running more, which ends up just turning into like real money in the end. Then lastly, the monitoring side to it. We've captured at the beginning of the process what the operator's doing, the job, the person, the machine. And off that machine, we're getting a live feed of all this cycle data, the on, the off, the stop, the start. I'm waiting for an operator. What tools in use, what speed is it running at, all that sort of stuff. We're capturing all that, and we're blending it seamlessly with the job information that was put in the front side, which gives you this crazy, ability to not only monitor what's going on in real time, but analyze in the aggregate and understand, your profitability and everything else.
Now, I mean, you talked a lot here about efficiency and cost savings, increasing profitability, ROI, all of which I know businesses are interested in. And I know over the last, I don't know if it seems like it's been almost my entire life, there has been this discussion about making the manufacturing processes here in the United States more competitive with other areas in the country, or not in the country, but in the world, who have lower costs of production because they've got lower labor costs and they've got different sets of regulations.
Yep.
Do you see, your products as it relates to implementation in U.S. markets as helping to aid in competitiveness for those U.S. entities?
Yeah, absolutely. In the end, the way we see it is that, the machinery is the same all over the world, so in fact, we probably have access to some higher tech stuff here stateside. So the differences are exactly what you've mentioned. You've got wage differences, although that's coming up in the world as well. Currency manipulation, regulations, the way districts are specialized, and things like that. There's a lot of things that make it that have enticed things to move overseas. But when it comes to high precision parts, in particular, we continue to have the advantage here. We've got the kind of skilled workforce that is really ideal in making a lot of that sort of product. And the other thing is that we've also seen the challenges of putting all your eggs in this basket of an overseas market when you have some of the supply chain disruption and global pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So I think there is an interest in how do we do it here, and I think a lot of that just gets to be, how do you close the gap? Where do we take the parts that make sense to make here and make them here, and continue to refine it in a way that makes it as effective as possible. I think about that movie Moneyball a lot. I'm not sure if you recall that that film.
I do.
It was really this idea that about you had this disadvantage in a baseball team that couldn't compete with the Yankees, who had like this massive payroll. We still have that today. And of course, we got the Cleveland tie-in here, with the analysts that came up with this concept being with the Cleveland Indians at the time. And their thing was basically, forget trying to compete on money, try to compete on analyzing the data of it. And how do you basically pick out what makes the most sense to form a winning team? And I think that, that concept can be applied to what we're trying to solve here, basically. If you're trying to look at it, if you have the data to be able to analyze and to be able to optimize and know what makes sense to do here, that's how we win. I think that's how we close the gap. I think that's how we, really take things to the next level.
One of the things you talked about in that response also was the skilled labor force, and how we have, meaning the United States, kind of has the advantage with regards to precision related parts because we've got a more skilled labor force. Do you see trends or changes or predictions on the horizon as it relates to the labor force that's currently operating these CNC machines?
It's a challenge for us to overcome, definitely as a country. The average age of a lead machinist today is in their mid-50s, and we don't have this sufficient backfill of the folks kind of getting into the trade to kind of fill those shoes. So we've got to do something about that. And that's, of course, a big nationwide problem to solve to a certain extent, right, to get people interested in trades and understanding this is a great business to be in. We kind of see Harmoni as having a piece to that in a few different ways. One, you can imagine when I've talked about some of these safeguards that we put in place with the terminals, that helps the newer folks to get into the business and not have to have all this stuff in their head that the machinist in their mid-50s has learned over all this time. How do we facilitate that knowledge transfer into digitized work instructions, into videos and all that sort of stuff that can be pulled up automatically and help just prevent mistakes from happening and bring people confidently into that workforce. Also, one of the things with Harmoni is we have the same Harmoni terminal at every machine. It could be a 30-year-old Haas CNC machine or a brand new DMG Mori. They could all have this same interface at them. And it really makes it where you have a more adaptable workforce to basically know how to use, how to interact with this machine to start with. Of course, there's going to be nuances at the machine level itself, but at least we've given them a consistent interface for all the stuff that we can assist with. And then, lastly, it's really just, easier onboarding. And again, this kind of ties into the documentation aspect to it. But if you can basically make it where you can put these safeguards in where I've got this grainer operator, they're not yet certified on this machine, they need to follow the work instruction, we need to make sure they read the whole thing. We can basically put some guardrails around that to really just help bring them in. So, it's definitely a trend, but it's one I think we can help to improve.
Well, you mentioned another point that I think is interesting, that your technology works across the spectrum of CNC machines.
Right.
So
right.
it's not as if we would have that an operator, if I became an operator, that I would need to become familiar with all of the different machines in order to operate them. I would just really need to become, I don't mean to oversimplify this, because I know there still has to be, as you indicated, there's still a machine level aspect of this that the operator needs to be familiar with. But a big chunk of that can be kind of subsumed by my familiarity or training on your solutions, on Harmoni, the Harmoni Solutions product.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's definitely we try to do as much as is reasonable from our end to bridge that gap. And talking to all machines, it has continued to be one of the biggest challenges of making a product like this. You're talking machines that at the low end of the spectrum have no digital outputs at all. It's purely we have to talk to it at an analog level, reading voltage, to kind of the stuff that was maybe the like 90s ish stuff where maybe had serial ports and we're able to talk to them that way, to the early 2000 stuff where okay, maybe there's an Ethernet port, but it's definitely nothing like what our modern stuff would have. And then you got the brand new stuff, which is like great, but the reality is no company is going to have the exact same set of machines across the board. That's just not the way they do things. You just don't throw it out like you would a computer every few years. It's too expensive, so you use it until you really can't use it anymore, or it makes sense to upgrade. So yep.
Now, is it possible for you to, I mean, I see behind you one of the machines. Is it possible for you to just walk through and give us a little bit of a demonstration?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you see behind me here a Harmony terminal that's mounted next to what this would be a CNC control simulator. So this is a FANUC, which would be a kind of CNC control. It's kind of the brains of the CNC machine. And what you'll notice right off the get-go is we mount directly to it, and we kind of have this screen size that's approximately the same. This is meant to be just an accessory screen. It's not meant to kind of get in the way. Just you put it up there and it just kind of acts as this like bonus, like extra monitor almost, but it does a heck of a lot more than a monitor would, obviously. And this is kind of a close-up view of it here. You can kind of see it's a touchscreen device. We have along this side of the board, we have all of our maybe old school analog connectors on this side where you might be reading voltage and things like that. And then on this side, we'd have all the more modern digital connections.
Okay.
It has a long range RFID baked into it, as I mentioned, has a camera. It has this light up here. This light is actually very clever. It's not just whether the machine is working or not. It is actually also it's telling you about the efficiency of the machine as it's operating. So operations can just look out across the floor and they'll see sequences of lights that let them know they need to go focus their attentions out there.
Okay.
So, and obviously a touchscreen sort of interface going on here. So the way I best demonstrate this typically is, it's impossible for you to kind of see the screen from here.
Absolutely.
So what I do is I'll flip on a screen share here real quick. Are you able to see that if I turn on the screen share?
I believe so.
All right, let's try that.
Yep.
So, so here is just a screen share from this terminal here, basically.
Okay.
So the way that it operates is the screen has multiple different sections to it. An operator typically would start their day on this section here, which is the people screen. The people screen is whenever I showed you earlier, I had this little badge where I put a sticker on the back of it.
Yes.
That would be representing these badges. So right now it sees the three badges I have in my hand, but if you want to kind of see this RFID in action, if I clear the screen here real quick, as soon as I move these badges within range, the terminal is going to pick them up and present them on the screen for me. So you'll see that it just pops them onto the screen as soon as you walk up to it. It's an adjustable range, but the typical will be about 15 feet.
Okay.
As soon as it starts to see you. From there, the operator will tap their name. And from here, this is where they'll clock in for the day. So they're starting their day at the machine, basically.
Okay.
So all they do is they tap the button for clock in, and you'll see they're immediately clocked in. Now, this transaction is going immediately into the ERP system if the company has an ERP, by the way. So you would know that the operator is there from all the other systems that you use as well.
Okay.
Next, they're going to say what they're working on. They go from here, they go to start activity. And similarly to the job badges or the employee badges, the paperwork might have these little stickers on them too. So you can see the antenna has picked up these two jobs that are nearby. And I can say, all right, I'm going to work on Atlas left. I just tap run, and the operator will be clocked onto that activity now. So, again, this is something that's happening, going live into ERP now. So we're capturing the cost of this operator's time right now, basically, as we're doing it. Now, what they're going to do next is we would anticipate the operator would want to know how to do the task. So they'd click this little icon of a book here. This is the digital work instructions. This shows you how to do your activity. And we do have, the screen is, might be a bit small to read this for some kind of activities. So we do have an ability from here where you can actually take this and pop this out onto a big TV or a tablet or something like that. So this is where you might view the drawings or the setup guides and things like that. You just pull that all up from here. What's key is the operator didn't pick this. This was picked for them. It knew the right instruction for the part, the revision, even down to the machine possibly. You could have a different instruction for a different machine. We just do figure that out for them and just present it here. Next, you get to the program loading, which is this little kind of code looking button here. This shows you all the programs that are associated with this machine and this part rev machine. So from here, they can either just load them all right now, or they can tap into a specific program and see the G code for it and then load it from there. So it's just as simple as tapping the load button. And what that does is the Harmoni device just transfers it onto the control and you're good to go. Again, you're not picking this from a network drive or something like that, like they're doing today, or a USB stick. We're just doing it from right here. We also get into a lot of times the paperwork. There might be notes and comments and things like that that will evolve over time. We have a screen in here where you can see for all the jobs that are nearby, all that information that you might want to know, drill into the different, steps of the job, things like that. Then the last piece where this all ties together would be on the home screen here, where you can kind of see the operator, what they're clocked onto, and this bar chart down here at the bottom. So what you're seeing here is the bottom is we're seeing the machine's cycles, whether it's running, stopped, interrupted, meaning it's waiting for the operator to do something. You'll see them all presented on this little growing chart down here. I actually have the machine running right now, so I'm actually going to turn the feed rate up on it now, which is a CNC term there, and we'll actually see it stop here within a few minutes by the time I'm done talking about it. But then at the top part, you'll see the operator's time. And this is your first visual indication of when there is a disconnect on what's going on. I've kind of exaggerated it for the demonstration here, where I have the operator was clocked onto an activity for hours, right? You see this giant green bar here.
And I'm assuming, if I'm reading that correctly, that's like 8.5 hours.
It's like 8.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
And the machine was actually stopped that entire time. So this is the nexus of the garbage in, garbage out problem, right? Where this is the cost going into the ERP system, and that does not align with reality, what was actually happening. And you could only know that if you seamlessly paired that up in the way that we do it here. So you can kind of see that that's kind of building this out. We'll actually see the cycle stop here once the program is done running. But while I'm waiting for that, let me show you the next bit, which is our cloud platform. So this is where all of this information gets to be kind of consumed and used. And you can pull this up in a web browser, you can pull this up on a tablet, whatever else. What you see here is a set of dashboards to help you to understand what's going on in your shop. And we break it down into, kind of smart little buckets here. So we have, for example, alerts. These are things that are like, hey, this machine is offline right now, things like that. We also have things like insights. Here would be an insight for the machine I'm looking at right now, where this machine is actually not run for 9.5 hours today. Okay, maybe that's a thing to draw attention to. Or this is probably the bigger one. It was running without a labor ticket for 8.5 hours today. That was that big red span versus the green span there. Something to quickly draw your attention to it. And you can refine this over today, week to date, month to date, to kind of help you to. These kind of just are the quick tips we give you to kind of steer you in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And from there, you can actually look at the individual machines and know, okay, well, what's going on? Okay, here's this machine here. Here's the operator. Here's the utilization on this machine. And I can drill into it and see that similar view like I saw on the machine itself, but break it down even further into like, understanding which operators were responsible for the amounts of time on the machine that were like unallocated and things like that. There's obviously a lot more to drill into in here. We have lots of reports and exports and all that sort of stuff to consume this data. That kind of gives you a high level flavor of what we're all about with the platform here and kind of how it ties together. And by the way, you can kind of see here that cycle just stopped. So
Yeah.
this is kind of that indicator. So we're all about is letting you see all of it, but then consume it in an intelligent way.
So I'm going to ask a kind of a question. Looks to me like a lot of data that maybe some of your customers just didn't have before.
That's right.
Do you find that they have, and maybe you haven't experienced, do you find they have trouble kind of analyzing and reacting or predicting based upon the amount of data that they're getting, or how are they adjusting, I guess, to that process?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right that we're providing a data point they don't have today. A lot of times when they're bidding a new job today, they know just as well as anybody does that they have to kind of make a bit of a educated guess when it comes to the machine time on things, because it's really two disjointed systems that they have to not know, okay, you got machine utilization over here and you got the labor charge over here. And when you're trying to bid a new project out, you just don't have all the information to say with 100% accuracy. And beyond that, then you don't have a great ability to understand, okay, if I run it on this machine with this operator, how much is it likely to take versus this machine with this operator, how much is it likely to take? There is a large amount of information that they gain from implementing Harmony. And the reality is this. One of the challenges, that we, as we see customers, looking to implement this, their immediate reaction sometimes might be, wow, this is a lot. This is a big change. I don't know if I'm ready for this yet.
Well, one of the things you talked about, right, is this industry hasn't changed, or at least not significantly, in decades.
Right. So, what we really will push back on that with is that we've applied Harmony in a way that you can take baby steps with it, that you basically don't have to go all in with this immediately and use every feature day one. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Let's start with, let's take it in the most extreme example, the basic time tracking. Let's bring the time tracking to the machines. You're saving those few minutes walking back and forth per job change. That adds up. That's a big deal. And what you're getting for free as a side effect of that, without any extra effort, is all that seamlessly paired machine data. Mm-hmm. And if you're not ready to start, digging into that yet, maybe that feels like a big step. That's okay. It's there. The most important thing is the record button is turned on, and you'll have that data when you're ready to consume it. Because like all big data, it only actually gives you insight as it's been collected over a long period of time.
Sure.
So that's the most important thing.
Now, as you guys move forward, Harmony moves forward, do you see any areas of growth either in the near term or the long term that you're experiencing or you're seeing as trends in the industry?
Yeah. So, today, where we're seeing the most immediate growth for Harmony is in the high precision CNC machine shops. The folks that, we're seeing a lot in the aerospace and defense side of things, where, they basically, a lot of what we're talking about with Harmony speaks to problems they're trying to solve today. We're trying to squeeze more juice out of the lemon. We also know that a network drive of CNC programs is not proper revision control. We've been burned by it. We need ways to turn it into a proper database that properly pulls up everything. So for those folks, that's our most immediate, we're resonating deeply with them, and we're having a lot of success in that world. And, we'll probably continue to serve them for a long time to come. There's a lot of them out there that really care about solving these problems. In the long term, though, we do see Harmony as a product that goes beyond even CNC machining. We want this product to be we always refer to it as the nest of industrial IoT devices. And, an IoT device to to manufacture today might sound like a scary concept, but the reality is this: if you think about like your Nest thermostat you have at home, it was an easy thing to install. You just plug two wires into it. It didn't cost too much. It did something super useful for you that was better than your old thermostat. You could control it from your phone and stuff like that.
Right.
It was just a no-brainer for you. And that's what we shoot for with Harmoni. We want to make a device that's simple to drop in, doesn't require tremendous expense up front. We have kind of a model that makes it where it's super easy to get started with Harmoni, and provides an immediate tangible ROI. And we want to do that for all machines long term. All machines where we have an interaction with a human, where that we can kind of improve that. We can cause chain reactions amongst machines, people, tow motors, all that sort of stuff to like bring all this together. I think, we want to be something that's just ubiquitous throughout manufacturing, where you want to just tie up the processes perfectly and neatly and to bring this all together.
Now, as you kind of, we talked about the areas of growth. Do you see any challenges that you either are currently facing or you kind of think you'll be facing in the future as you kind of expand or seek to expand to get this kind of widespread adaptation?
Yeah, I mean, it really goes back to the framing the fear of change for a lot of folks. I think that's really our number one. When we talk to people and we've got that pushback, most places we've got any sort of pushback, that has been it largely, where it's wow, I don't know if we're ready for this yet. So we need to continue to frame the solution in the way that we are, in a way that like makes it where it's easy to try, it's low risk, it's and that's kind of where it starts for us at. And everything else, it seems like we're in a field right now that is very receptive to the concept of it. When I've showed this to most folks, it's really cool to get that, wow, this is amazing. Like I've never seen nothing like this. So we definitely have that wow factor, and we're going to continue to leverage that. So as long as we can kind of frame it in a way that settles down the fear of change, then we're in good place.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us
Yeah,
today.
thanks for having me. This has been fun.
I look forward to seeing Harmoni's future growth and success in the future. I'm always excited to talk to an entrepreneur from Ohio who is doing some really cool stuff. So I appreciate you taking the time today.
All right, thank you. Nice talking to you, Zach.